Tonight's second place finisher. Plenty of fans here, Brett, and a solid second place finish.
Yeah, I got to shout out the Turn 2 Terribles over there. They're all a bunch of good guys to hang out with, talk to. I really like them.
Welcome on in, guys. Turn 2 Terribles here. It is January 30th, 2023. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. We got a great show for you. We got Justin Foster and Chase Dietz joining us tonight. We're going to be picking their brains a little bit, hearing about their story up to this point and what the future holds for those guys. First and foremost, I got to say, go Birds.
Wow.
How are you guys doing?
Doing good, man. I am hyped for tonight. I can't wait. I got to know these guys a little bit this past season, follow their journey a little bit. Super excited. We're gonna have Justin on here first. We're gonna take a little break. We'll come back, talk a little bit of dirt track racing. Chase had a tight schedule here with him building his deal, so we're gonna get him on here a little after that. We'll chat a little sprint car racing, and man, I'm excited. We got a lot of. It's that time of the year, man. Like it's almost
closer.
real.
We're getting
right?
closer.
It's almost real. There was racing in Florida, real sprint cars on real dirt. It's almost here. How you doing, Chris?
I'm good. Excited to be back. And like you said, can't wait to see real race cars. We'll see them in a expo this week, but soon enough we'll see them on some real dirt.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Before we bring Justin in, I just want to say thank you for everybody who's tuning in right now, watching us. If you're listening later on Spotify or whatever, thank you very much. Please like, comment, subscribe, share us to your friends. Put your questions in the chat tonight. And just all that engagement stuff helps us out here. Really helps keep the cause going. So thank you guys much. Without further ado, let's bring in Justin Foster.
Justin, welcome. What's going on, man?
How's it going, guys?
Awesome, man. Thanks for joining us, dude. When we started this idea and kind of got going, I was like, man, I got to get Justin on the pod. I got to meet him last year, followed along last year. You got, that badass looking race car and kind of got to know you a little bit. And you were one of the first names on the list, and it's just scheduling and getting you here. So welcome. Thanks for taking time out of your evening. Do this with everybody. Jimmy, Chris, myself. For myself, there's a lot of things I don't know a lot about you guys. So, it's very short term for me. Like, I know family name a little bit. I know the car, a little bit of the journey, but I don't even know nearly enough. So tell us a little bit about your background, your family's background, and how you got to where you are today.
My old man, he grew up racing, obviously. Grew up in the fender car world. And my journey started back. I got a dirt bike back when I was 3, turning 4. Raced dirt bikes till I was about 16 or 17. And that was my main thing was 2 wheels. And so going to 4 wheels was definitely a big change. Started out with some go-kart stuff for a little bit. And once I joined the military then when I was 18, and after that just kind of was back to helping my dad and kind of rolling with him. And he got hurt one day in the shop, actually. I fell off a ladder and he caught me and tore his bicep. And that's actually how I got my first ride in racing. About 2 weeks later, he's like, well, you might as well get in. And started racing the sportsmans from there and did that for a couple years. And then he started some 358 sprint car stuff, and I kind of started transitioning into that. I would say, I don't remember what year that was, 3 years ago. So I think 2020 was my rookie year. And got rookie of the year that year. Second year, most improved driver, and clicked off our first win. And had a rough season this year, but we're still grinding, still digging, building some new race cars as we speak, and getting ready for next year.
So I knew a little bit about the sportsman deal, and I think that's kind of where, for me, your dad was on the radar a little bit. And I heard your name, but last year and this year, really for the 358 for me is where, like, you kind of burst on the scene for me, and I noticed, like, hey, like this is a contender. This is a guy who can run up front, who can pass cars. It's showing up. So you're not the first 358 guy on here to say 2022 wasn't the shiny year.
Yeah.
And I think some of the stories kind of like connect, right? I know like you and Jaden had a night.
Yeah.
I know that there were some nights where things just didn't go well, right? Whether it was just a dumb luck thing, get caught in something breaks, and we've heard that from at least two other people. I want to say that it just didn't go the way they wanted to, and I think that really attributes to the competition in that division, right? So you guys have to drive hard. Every position matters. You got to go for it, and sometimes you're gonna have somebody in front of you, maybe inexperienced. You run into something. Like, did you take anything from the year and you go, okay, look, I went through this, learned from it, got better, or was it sort of like, hey, things just have to turn my way better?
Yeah, just kind of try to take everything in this racing world with kind of a grain of salt. You know what I mean? This stuff's so tough every week in and out. So just with this year alone, just basically trying to not get real down in the dumps. This was a terrible year, and there was points that we were loading up to go to the races, and we're all just like, man, I just hope we qualify tonight, or I just hope we finish tonight. And them kind of nights, they kind of suck. And just trying to keep pushing through, and that's kind of the biggest thing, I'd say, and not just wanting to throw the towel in.
And I'm sure that's hard, right? Because every time you go to the racetrack, you want to win, and anything short of winning sometimes is frustrating. And especially when, like, I guess it's different than maybe the real world per se, right? A career, you're gonna have a good day, you're gonna have a bad day, but you can continue to progress. When you go to the racetrack, anything short of winning, it can be a bad day. So you leave many times with more bad days than good days. And I'm sure that can wear on not just you as a driver, but family and team. And, sometimes when family's involved, that's even magnified. That's even, it can happen even more, right? Because your dad probably shares the same passion you do. So now you got times two, right? Of sharing frustrations, whether it's Justin's fault or not, that can kind of like it just explodes, right? And sometimes you're just like, man, I don't want this to end badly tonight because this is not starting good, let alone ending good. So and I know that there was a lot of torn up parts. In the end of the year, you had I think a fairly plain wing on one side of it. Did you start to get low on parts as the season went on? Was that a challenge for you?
Yeah, and even just trying to get parts right now, and then I think all of us in the sprint car world are experiencing in some manner in this off season. Just trying to get parts from week to week can be tough. And, then you kind of get to the end of the year and we're kind of, I don't want to say like patching stuff together, but we didn't want to buy a bunch of new stuff to go out and race 2 races to go into the off season and buy all more new stuff. So we're trying to keep some of the new stuff we got for next year. And I had a terrible reputation for wings there. I think in our last 5 weeks, my dad was probably ready to kill me. I borrowed a wing from your buddy Nat, and went out, destroyed that wing on a borrowed wing, and just nothing seemed to really click. And I don't know what it was going to take, and we kept trying to figure out what in the world it was going to take, and we just couldn't get that thing to click. And and we went into the off season with almost a win, a good finish to end the year. And I think if that caution wouldn't have come out, we probably could have wrapped up a win, but shoulda, coulda, wouldas. They're a lot different in the real world. So,
listen, I don't have a lot of favorites in that world. Like, I know a lot of you guys in that division. I definitely have some guys I'm close to, but man, I was cheering for you so loud that night, and you feel just like jumping around, like let's go. And then Yellow came out, and I saw Hammaker was in second, and I was like, oh no! Like, it's not that you're not going to be able to get it done, but Hammaker in second with clean air ish.
Yeah,
It's a problem.
It's tough. And I knew it was going to be tough on the restart. And I'm good buddies with Handmakers and my engine builders as well. So I have a good relationship with them. And if there was someone else to win, I guess I'd say with a grain of salt, I was happy it was him.
Yeah, it was tough, man. Like I was like, because you had, well, I mean, you were at least a straightaway ahead, I think, at that time.
Yeah.
So you were kind of checked out and gone, and you had a great night overall that night. Like it seemed to just kind of fall in place like it was supposed to. I believe,
things kind of clicked that night for us, and it was good to end the season on a good note. We didn't have to go into the winter with nothing. So it kind of made us feel a little bit better. I mean, we were out there in a used car that I bought in the middle of the season after I junked the car, and again, I had one frame left, and that was it. And we threw it together, and Billy at 717 Innovations hooked me up with a body that week, and kind of slapped it together, and it went out, and we were pretty good with it out of the box. And for a car I bought out of the barn, some guy's barn, it wasn't too bad.
That's wild how that works sometimes. And
yeah,
it's almost like clean slate, yet it's an unknown, but it's a clean slate in a way. Like it just worked,
Yeah.
I wanted to go back a little bit when you made the transition from the Super Sportsman to the 358. That happens, but I haven't talked to anybody who's done that yet. I think on this show, or anybody in person about that transition. Tell me a little bit about that. The driving technique, how the cars react differently. That Super Sportsman division is definitely a unique one in Central PA.
Yeah.
Since we tend to do things just weird around here. Just add that to the list. The idea.
Yeah,
of
you got that right. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. Explain a little bit for anybody who might not be from Central PA that might tune into this. What a Super Sportsman is, kind of the idea and design differences between the two.
Yeah, they're similar in so many ways to a sprint car, but they're so different as well. They're a 358, but they're a carbureted 358. It's not fuel injected, anything like that. When I raced Super Sportsmen, they had manual steering boxes, so there was no power steering. Which nowadays you can run power steering in those cars, which I'm sure is great. Especially, I'm kind of a smaller guy, and them manual steerings, they beat you up, especially when you're up hitting the cushion or something. They'll wear you out at the end of the night. And they're a box tube frame on the bottom lower rails. They don't have round tubing; it's a box tubing. So I mean, in theory, they're really similar. But they're not. It's a single wing car, one wing on the top, no nose wing.
And the wing on top is a little different as well, right?
Yeah. So especially my first time in a 358 was with that big side by side offset wing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 3x5s. In the 358 world, they have like a 16 square foot rule for wings. So their wings are small, especially when you compare them to like the 25 square foot wings. These 5x5s are humongous. So when you strap that thing on top of a car, it changes the air so much, and the lockdown, especially in the 358 world now with us with those, you can really lock them down pretty hard and get a good feel out of them.
So with the Super Sportsman, obviously aero is a huge thing. Obviously, I would think power delivery is a pretty big thing as well with those cars. At least from what I recall watching, if I watch a Super Sportsman and I watch a 358. Yep. The 358, when you have to race around other cars, or excuse me, the Super Sportsman, when you're racing tight against other cars, I mean, is it a whole different way of racing in a sense around other cars versus 358?
Yeah, definitely. And we come from a steel engine to a steel engine, so that's kind of the same, like your nose weight feel. But with these two, like the dual wings and a 5x5 wing on a sprint car, if you tuck in behind another car, the air, the way it moves the car, the airflow off it is so different. In the Sportsman, you never really felt like dirty air. In the Sportsman world, I saw myself a couple times say like dirty air, but definitely dirty air in a sprint car with 5x5 it's so different. You go to enter a corner behind another car, I mean the thing won't even turn; it'll just go straight. So trying to offset.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, like trying to offset, how you are behind a car coming down the straightaway in the sprint car world is pretty key. When it comes to corner entry.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine we see that a lot, and we're most of us listening are the normal wing sprint car fans, the two wings, the 5x5s,
Yeah.
whether that's a 358, a 360, or a 410. So, kind of that leads me to: did you have that moment when you jumped in a 358 the first time you went sailed in there behind a car? Did you have? I mean, you probably still have those moments at times, but did you have that one moment where you're like, "Holy shit, this thing almost flipped over"? Like, did you have
Yeah.
that moment?
Yeah, and it was the first time I ever probably really experienced it was at Port Royal. Um, I did I think I want to say it was probably my third race in the sprint car. Um, we went up to a 360 show at Port, and so it was my first time with a true 5x5 on, and that was actually a dished 5x5, and it was so different especially coming from a sportsman to two races and a 358 with this crazy goofy wing that it just sat on the left front anywhere you were on the racetrack, and then I strapped that thing on, and I'm like, this is just everything was so different, and first time at Port as well, so it was insane.
I can imagine, going from a super sportsman to a full size 5x5 at Port Royal, nonetheless. Not like
Yeah,
not like Lincoln doesn't have dirty air, but you go to Port Royal with all that
yeah,
wing speed, and you're just like, oh, it doesn't turn. Okay,
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
noted. Got it.
yeah.
Are you a big track guy, short track guy? What's kind of your favorite preference there?
Um, I'd say when I first got in the sprint car, definitely big track. I like the speed. I like when you can run the top, but I have really grown in the sprint car world to like Lincoln Speedway style racing. Um, Maybe I'm biased because we race there so much, as opposed to going to the Grove or going to Port or going to Sealands Grove and tracks like that. But man, it can get so much fun when you're racing at Lincoln, and it's so tight. And I always say it's almost like you never stop. Like your eyes are always moving, and your hands are always moving, and your head's always on a swivel. And then you get to the Grove sometimes in the 358 world. Now I'm sure 410's got to be so different. Like there's times you're coming down the straightaway like hot laps or something. You're like, man, this straightaway is long.
Is there ever another end to this thing?
Yeah, like oh, man, where's the corner?
Chris, Jimmy, what do you got?
Chris.
I think I was going to piggyback off of that, like you said. So with big track stuff early on, and versus Lincoln being busy now, other than obviously tighter and a lot more work seeming like, what are the biggest differences or challenges going from, say, a Lincoln to a Port Royal or Williams Grove?
I'd almost say it makes you better instead of like a challenge. Because you kind of get more relaxed at them big tracks, because you come from Lincoln where you raced 18 straight races, and then all of a sudden you're at the Grove for our second or third race of the year, and you kind of get to the Grove and it's like, man, we're so like spaced out, we're not wheel to wheel, and it kind of gives you more of a quicker reaction, I'd almost say, when you get to them big tracks, because it almost seems like everything slows down so much.
Makes sense. Jimmy, what do you have?
I'm going to take a question here from the audience. Sean Donnelly, could always count on him for a question every week. It's great. Thank you for serving in the military, Justin. What branch did you serve in?
I'm actually currently still in. I'm in the Army National Guard here in PA, and I'm full time out at Fort Indiantown Gap. So that's what I do full time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
Awesome.
that.
Yeah,
Appreciate your service,
Thank
dude.
you.
Where'd you go to school? You local? You from here?
Yep, I went to Central Dolphin High School.
It's okay. Nobody's perfect.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking too.
I'm just kidding, bro. Listen, I'm a York guy, so like I don't even know where that is, so I don't even know what that means. But
Cumberland Valley here, so
okay, Chris would know better than I would. But Jimmy, did you have a question, by the way? I know you went to the fan question there.
No, I'm sure we'll get into it. Go ahead.
All right, cool. So you won. Did you say you win a race this year or last year? Did you win a race last year? Last year.
No, this past year, we'd be lucky if we won to be me.
That's not true. I don't.
Yeah,
every week. That's not true every week. How were I got a shirt actually, so of yours. How was your merch sales last year overall? How do you think evaluate that?
Relatively decent. I think I had a couple left at the end of the year, and some smalls that were laying around, but hats went quick and shirts pretty much sold. So that was good.
Yeah, I mean that's always a big help, and I think that
definitely.
The more 358 guys that do that, I think the better. And I know that that's an investment. I know that there's probably guys that maybe in the pits that don't think that they could sell them. I disagree. I think that there is a it may take some time for some guys over others, but I think that you bring a good looking race car to the track and you're on the track and you're showing up every week, fans want the stuff. And I don't
Yeah.
think I think that's for any division. I think it's a big boost potentially, or a small boost of whatever profit you're making for teams just to have your name out there. And I think that's huge. I think more teams could take advantage of that.
Right. And I think to
Yeah, and that's
piggyback on that, like for me, I've seen it more and more week to week where guys aren't necessarily sticking to I'm a Lance Deweese or whoever fan and just buying their merch only. Like that's how I remember growing up. Now it's like I go, hey, this guy was cool. I met him or whatever. I'm buying the merch and
yeah,
I'm wearing it all the time. So I have
Yeah.
too many shirts to mention. I'll just buy all of them. And I think I'm seeing
yeah.
more and more of that in different circles.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. I always
Yeah.
get the can you wear something other than a race shirt?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm with you. I think too, it just goes to show how smart of a fan base we have around here, because I think people realize that they're supporting the driver by doing that. You know what I mean? You want to support
Yeah.
the whole sprint car scene, support all the drivers and everything. So I think that's something you see a lot of.
Yeah, it's definitely good for support. And it's not only supporting us, it's supporting our sponsors and stuff that are on the car as well. So, it's always something that I always try to, let people know in the sponsor world that, hey, we get T-shirts made. It's not only going to be on the car, you're also on T-shirts, you're on decals, and, that stuff kind of carries.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's what makes it go around. I mean, Justin Foster wants to be successful and race cars and be able to support this deal, right? And continue whatever that path is. But you can't do it if you don't have names on the car, right? You can't do it on your own. And those are what drive the sport, the fans and the sponsors. The teams, absolutely. But the teams don't exist if there aren't fans and sponsors.
100%.
You all just do it in your backyard, nobody would know it, right? You just dig out a patch. So, and I think a lot of people lose sight and think they're the most important thing at a racetrack, and honestly, they're not. It's about the fans and the sponsors because they're paying the bills. So, the tracks aren't the number one. They are not the most important. They are there to facilitate everything. And believe it or not, the tracks think they're the most important thing, but they also don't exist if we don't show up, right? That pit money and that general mission money is what pays the bills. So to do anything to deter anybody from being at the track for any reason is just absolute suicide. It makes no sense. Anyway,
very well put, by the way.
Almost like a fire off segment was on the tip there.
It's almost like I'm in business and I know I might.
Week.
It's almost like I'm in the business world and I kind of know anything about this. But anyway, I don't know how to run a racetrack. I will admit that I don't know shit about running a racetrack. But question: earlier you talked about your dad was a fender guy coming up through. What did he drive?
Street stocks. He was a big street stock guy, and surprisingly, I think his goal at one time was to be a late model driver, and I'm really glad he didn't get one of them things because that's not something I'd be wanting to work on or put body panels on.
That answered my next question. We'll move on from fenders. I was going to say, you ever want to hop in one of those things and take a lap?
But, I would drive one. I would drive one. One time,
he said was work on it.
I
want to fix it.
The working on it part, man. I have a good buddy of mine, Chad Smith, and he's got a late model and went from the sportsman world to late models. And I looked at it one time and I was like, there are way too many adjustments on this thing, way too many Zeus buttons and body panels.
It's funny. We were just having a conversation in a Discord chat about late models, and you listen to a late model broadcast, right? And they introduce drivers. So like when you come out on track, then Justin Foster from Central Dauphin High School, and sponsored blah blah blah, and he's out here, right? They don't mention anything else. And late model world, it's Justin Foster in a Longhorn, and they don't say anything else. The only thing that matters is the chassis, like. And then they cover up all the back and the suspension like there's some sort of secret nobody's ever heard of before. Like, get over yourselves. Anyway,
the
late model world is a wild one for sure. I just don't know how innovative that stuff is that people don't know about in 2023. Maybe I'm just not a late model guy to be able to answer that question. But
I always say it's like NASCAR dirt. That's what I always say they are. They are way above and way. They make our stuff look antique. 100%.
It's simple, right? Even as complicated and finicky as they are. So new tire coming out this year. So have you? First of all, I don't even know. Are they out yet? Can you get one?
It doesn't sound like they're out yet. I know that I was at Miller's picking some parts up not too long ago, and it looks like they might have it for the first. I don't know if I'm supposed to. they might have them sometime early in the season.
They might have.
Nice
Someday.
And so I think they're coming. They're a little bit different from what I've read. I haven't put a checked actually what they are in person, but from what I read, it kind of seems like they're kind of similar to like the spec tire. A little bit harder, which I don't know if that's really going to be a bad thing. I think kind of the bad thing is just adding to what we already have. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? I might just be speaking hypothetically, but.
Well, I think it's all hypothetical right now because there's no practice to go off of. Nobody knows anything.
There's no notes. There's no comparison.
There's no data, anything. So I'll refer back to a little bit of a story that I heard. This was when Brent Marks was in the Outlaw Tour, and they had a tire change some point throughout one season to the next. It was a compound thing. It wasn't quite as dramatic as kind of what's happening, I think, right now and what the reasons for it. But he really struggled that next season of trying to figure out what it wanted, and all the notes he had didn't work, and he was kind of struggling. So, I mean, do you have someone who has a stock of the current tire?
Well, Miller's has a pretty good stock of leftovers from last year, from the sounds of it, anyway.
So, if you took last year's tire and you take this year's tire, and you have the same thing, you bolt on the new one, and you're like, "Whoa, this ain't going to do it." At some point, everyone's going to be forced to run the new one. But why would anyone bolt on the new one if it's a harder compound? Other than making it last longer, if it doesn't give you the speed and the grip, why would anyone bolt it on? Maybe, or am I missing something?
Yeah, and it's kind of what we already talked about in our race shop. If we don't have to run them, I don't think we're gonna. Until we start getting some of these 410 teams that run it and can kind of give us some feedback on it. They race 5 times to R1. So if we can kind of carry some of their notes in ours, and then 1 week finally try it, instead of, hey, we start third tonight, let's strap this tire on that we have no
that we
notes
don't
on
know.
and see what it does. It's kind of, you don't want to really make a huge change like that if you don't really need to. If things are working. I mean, if you're struggling, then we start throwing the kitchen sink at it. And maybe that'll be when it comes. We start having a bad week, and it's like, nah. Well, let's try it.
I mean, it just, to me, just my brain went to harder compound doesn't mean speed. Could it work on a certain kind of track? Yeah, but do you have that often? Central PA, we're not known for dry slick very often. So I don't know. I just don't see that it being a thing where they can't eliminate the old tire because people need tires. Right. So they can't just say you're out and waste that money. But I don't see any reason why someone would just bolt this thing on and go, well, this is going to go better. I don't, especially if you don't know. Even if you went out there in a hot lap session, how do we know the data on getting that thing hot, taking it off, and then what happens if you race it a month later? Is it any good? Is it junk? Right? Who knows? So with all the unknowns there, and at some point it's going to be if the data comes out and says, hey, this new tire is not performing the same way the old one did, it's going to be who has more of the old tires the longest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a straight up performance.
I think in the 358 world, we're not really going to see a rule. At least I don't think we're going to see a rule for the 358 teams to have to run it. But I wouldn't be surprised if the 410 world gets into, you guys have to try it first, and then make the change from there.
So you see the 410 world, they could institute and say, hey, you got to run this now?
I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen.
So comment here, Sean Keene. This is Kyle Keene's dad, by the way.
Yep.
My understanding on the Hoosier tires, the 410s have 4 weeks, then on to the new tire. 358s will have to go to the new tire and are not allowed to run the H15 at some point. So kind of what you're saying there.
That's kind of what I have heard in the, the rumor mill. The rumors are never the truth, but that's pretty much what I've kind of heard, that the 410s we're going to switch to it, and then it's going to kind of be a trickle down effect into the, us smaller guys after that.
So I could see it a situation where if you have 410 guys and they have 4 weeks. I wonder when that 4 weeks starts. Number one, right? Is
Yeah.
that Central PA or is that national, like sanctioning national?
Or like
Yeah, that's kind of a good question, because at what point do they stop buying the H15s to wait for this new spec tire or whatever they're gonna? I forget what they're calling that tire, to be honest. At what point do they stop buying tires at H15s? Because what if they don't use them, and then what do they do with them? It sounds easy to we'll sell it to the 358 guy, but
That's where my brain went. Like, hey, you guys got good tires all season if you don't have to race the.
Yeah.
Depending on what the performance is. I mean, who knows? Maybe that comes out and this thing is awesome, but
yeah, it might be great.
My common sense button went, that don't make sense. Like,
No, I would think with the 410 teams, I guess the World of Outlaws would have to play a hand in that, because whatever they dictate their rule be for season opener, they're coming in March. That's
so they're here.
opening week for.
I was gonna say next week. Next week,
Right.
really.
So I mean, 4 weeks is fine and dandy, but the World of Outlaws will be here, and if they're mandating it, you have to run it, at least for those World of Outlaw shows. And there's 4 of them in March, so that's interesting. Extra spice.
It'll definitely be interesting. So, moving on to a different topic, have you thought about 410 racing at any point? I know last year doesn't say, "Hey, let's go 410 racing." I get that,
right.
Understood. But is that something that you have like kind of like a timeline of like, "Hey, I'd like to progress to get to"?
Yeah, and I think at one point my dad and I were definitely on boat to by probably about this time in our racing to be in 410 world, but everything is just keeps going up in cost, and our 358s, I don't want to say they're affordable, because realistically they're not. And we're maintaining 2 motors and stuff like that now, and it's when you go to the 410 world, you have to maintain your program even more than you already maintain a 358 program. And I always try to put the analogy that when you race 410, like you're racing against guys that are doing this for a living. So if I'm working all week and I can race Friday, Saturday, well, they just raced on Tuesday in California, and then on Wednesday they were in Texas, and then they raced 5 times by the time I got to my one race for the week. And it kind of makes that tough when you're racing against caliber guys. And I fully respect them guys that can do it. Danny Dietrich, I saw his good. I'm a big Danny Dietrich fan, and I saw his schedule for this year, and I'm just like, I sent it to my dad right away, and I'm like, how do the 410 guys around here compete with someone that can race this many times? And it just makes it super tough. Like I said, when you're kind of racing at a 5-to-1 caliber, that guy's so fresh where you're like, wow, let's go see if I can knock the dust off from last week.
Yeah.
Just makes it super tough.
And it rains one night, you get one night a week, or something crazy.
Yeah.
Because I think there was a time where at Babs had 7 410 shows scheduled, and they got one in by July. They got, and that was a makeup from, they didn't have a race at a 410 until July. And it's like, not that we're knocking the dust off, but who knows with weather and how things could go. I mean, it is Pennsylvania. So
I think it's interesting, like Justin makes that point, because we've been hearing that a lot, the last few weeks. And Jordan Givler said the same thing, where he jumps in, and if you have one bad night, you learn nothing, and it sets you back, or you break a motor and you're out for a month. And now you're so far behind your learning curve. It really kind of sets you back more than like we would realize from the outside. So with that, so what's your schedule this year looking like?
Pretty similar to last year. We're going to do the full Lincoln Speedway, the full Grove schedule, and then the full summer series as well. And we'll probably put a couple 360 shows in there, kind of dependent on, and we always say, we kind of depended on how our season's going. If we raced Friday, Saturday the week before, and we had a 15th and a 15th, well, we probably shouldn't go to the port on Friday the next week or Thursday the next week and, go race the 360s. Let's just save it for Friday and Saturday. And, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what our schedule's looking like. I think we're around like 35 races right now with the BAP shows. Bill Devine, he put a real good race in there for us with the Dirty 30 at BAP. So I'm pretty excited for that one. And I got a lot of laps at BAP, so I always like when I can get back there and kind of do some sprint car racing there.
358 guys don't time trial a lot. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, it's something different. You know what I mean? And it kind of puts you in the spotlight there for a minute. And I always say, well, the old man will see my mistakes in this one, so it's a little harder when there's 5 cars around you. You can't hide it as much.
we've asked some 410 guys this question, and I don't know if I've gotten a 358 guy yet. I want two names: somebody you love racing around, and it's fun, it's enjoyable, and somebody who you just know it's going to be a battle, and it's a pain in the ass, and you hate racing around them. Give me one of each.
Well, I'll start with the last one first, since Handmaker took the win from us in the last race. I'll say that one. But in theory, I'd really like racing around him, though, to be honest, because he really teaches you a lot, and you learn things from guys like that. And guys I really enjoy racing around. That's a tough one. There's a lot of guys in the 358 world right now. It's just, you can really respect, and you kind of know their next. I don't want to say know their next move, but you can trust racing around. There's a lot of guys in the 358 world right now that are super good to race around, and they're clean no matter how hard you can actually race. So that's actually kind of a tough question.
I think watching this past year, guys like Steve Owings, Cody Hartlaub, like a Jeff Rohrball, aggressive but kind of predictable. You kind of know what he's going to do. You look up front, those kind of guys, even like you said, Hammaker, Cody Fletcher. I think that consistent. It's somebody that's not so unpredictable that you just don't know what's going to happen, which is when bad things can happen. So I agree with you in that division, probably more than even the 410s. There's more of those guys stacked in that top 10 every week that are that way. You get that outlier here and there. And I think even there's some young guys in that division, yourself included, because you don't have tons of experience, that are just going to get better and better. And I think that division, man, like 305s are super competitive because it's just the racing's close and everybody's the same, similar speeds. But like 358s, man, you guys have speed and it's just tight racing. To me, it's one of the better shows of the weekend, and I look forward to it because if you have enough track left, you guys put on a hell of a show. Yeah,
and it's kind of piggyback off what you're saying there. Like the 358s for us, like when we show up, I want to say probably like my rookie year. I don't want to say I felt like confident enough that we were going to do good. And now I'm not. Like it's not definitely not like that. But there's so many more contenders in the last like year and a half, 2 years that have come around, and it's kind of taken us from like a 20 car field of, well, this guy, you can do this, and this guy, you can do that, to now it's just, man, some of these, you get these young kids out there like Cameron Smith and Jaden, like you said earlier, and these young kids that are coming out, man, they're rippers, and it's really grown our division, to be honest, and it's made it extremely tough.
I talked about this a year or two ago, and I think the switch to the 5x5 wing, while puts some stress on the motors and cars and makes it, even more aero, I believe it made a change in that division where it's now, to me, is a true feeder to a 410 series. Not that 350s weren't before, and you would always see, Logan Schuhart and Chase Dietz and Troy Wagaman and some of those guys that had success in the 358s move up and kind of used it that way. But you saw a lot of times guys – it just didn't feel that way for a long time. And here the last couple of years, and again, maybe it's just timing. Maybe I'm just got lucky in where my brain went, but I feel like the wing change has really made it like that Knoxville 360 to Knoxville 410, right? It just seemed like a natural progression. You go through that, you go to this. To me, like especially at Lincoln, it feels that way now. I mean, am I off base in thinking that?
No, I agree with you 100%. And I only got to race with the crazy wing that last year when my dad knew that I was going to start to take over the following year. I think I finished the last like 4 races, one being the 360 show, and then 3 358 shows, because there's one at Lincoln, one at the Grove, and then one at Baps. It was a good chance for me to jump in and kind of, hey, here's 3 tracks. Plus, we're going to do a 360 show at Port and kind of get you wet, and we'll go into winter and kind of see what you think. Then all of a sudden, they changed the wing rule, so it's kind of useless anyways because it's different. 358, it's a crazy wing is to a 5x5. Car is completely different.
Chris,
yes.
What's on your mind, buddy?
Oh, I mean, I know what you
want. I think it's a good time to break out your question.
Right. So obviously, hopefully you have a better year this year looking ahead.
Yeah.
So this year, or looking ahead, or any year, what would be your favorite race to win, or one that you're most looking forward to trying to get a win at, or would be the most?
I'd say that the Dirty 30 show would definitely be one. It's our highest paying race. And to get a win back at FAPS where I won in a super sportsman, I can win a sportsman and a sprint car here, I think would be pretty neat.
410 division, the race you've always looked at as a fan, right? Because at this point, you're a fan of a 410. What race do you want to win? Anywhere, any place, anywhere.
Oh, it'd have to be. Well, if I could win any 410 race, it'd have to be the Knoxville Nationals.
Okay. I like
I
that.
think he might be the first one to say that.
Can't get any bigger than that.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. I can't argue it. I mean, as a Posse fan, like, man, not the Natty or the Tusky.
Well, yeah, those would be two cool local ones.
Oh, you forgot about them? Like what? You just didn't know they were there?
When you say
What
race would you
wanted to win, you kind of
I did say anywhere, any place. So
yep,
I
anywhere, any place.
You baited them.
I did. That was I led you into that one.
Now, if you would have said in PA, yep, probably the Tusky.
Okay.
Cool.
You like Port over Williams Grove? Not to compare the two because they're wildly different, but big track wise, Port Williams Grove.
Port's a lot of fun, especially when you can get your car rolling around there pretty good. I don't really have a lot of laps there per se, so I'd probably say the Grove just because of laps that I have there. And hopefully Justin will give us more 358 races if I say the Grove.
Hey, guys. I think I'd love it. I mean, I know they have the wing divisions, and I know that Saturday nights, Lincoln Speedway, it's like kind of like the 358 home in a sense. But I would love for there to be more 358. BAPS, Sealands Grove, Path Valley, Port Royal. Seeing you guys travel a little bit, almost like some of the sportsmen, wingless super sportsmen, kind of a little bit of everywhere. And I don't want to take that from Lincoln because I love watching 358s run around Lincoln, and I give them shit, but it is my favorite track for the most part, as far as it's kind of my home track. BAPS is, but they don't run weekly as much. I mean, BAPS would be the closest one to me, but Lincoln being what it is, definitely my favorite to watch a 358 rip around. But I'd love to see you guys get out and meet more diverse schedules. I think it would be, I think it would help all of you as drivers.
Yeah, and we're all in the same boat. It's getting that one summer series race at Big Diamond is pretty neat for us this year. Again, gets us kind of out to something different and can show off the division a little bit. And, hopefully we get a good car count. That's kind of always I don't want to say a struggle, but that's kind of, I think, what hurts us at BAPS. And I wish we got more races at BAPS, but, there's multiple times we've had BAPS races and, we have 12 or 13 cars. And I can definitely see from a owner standpoint of a track that it makes it tough to, hey, we scheduled you twice and we got 30 cars combined. And so why would I schedule you 3, 4, 5 times?
Right.
So I definitely like to see some more races at BAPS. I always, I enjoy going back there.
So your paint scheme, I thought was one of the best. Let's take a look at it real quick. Awesome scheme. Nice, sharp looking. Plans for 2023 paint scheme? Same, different?
It's going to be different. We're trying to change our
You don't
look
have to
up
give
a
me
little
spoilers
bit.
if you're not ready. We don't have to ask for spoilers.
I don't really have too many spoilers because it's not 100%, but I think we're going to do something along like the black and charcoal gray. We're going to pick a color to kind of throw in there that's not red. We've done red for the last 2 years and they weren't spectacular, so maybe it's time to just make some changes. And we get trying to think of the word, but we get skeptical, and we want to always change things in the right direction. And we're doing little things right now that we usually do flat black frames. This year we're doing shiny black just to switch it up. You know what I mean? Try something different, and maybe it'll change our luck a little bit and see how that goes.
There you go. That picture, I love that picture because of the helmet. They add some color splash to that thing. That helmet with that design, even though it's not like the match, right? You would think, like black, red.
Yeah.
No, it's perfect. It added some color to it, along with all that black, red, and white is just so sharp, man. It's just, I love that paint scheme from the start. It just has something about it where, like, it's busy, but it's not too busy, and the contrast is perfect on it. You guys did a great job with that for sure.
Yeah, I was happy with that car this year. I thought it turned out pretty well.
It stood out. You could see it. Like you knew you knew who it was. You knew it was you. Like you can get those schemes where they're sharp, but in traffic or at night, you go, wait, who was that? That looked so like so and so. Your car was like
Yeah,
simple and clean, but yet you knew who it was when you were going. You weren't mistaken
yeah,
for anybody else.
yeah. I always try to make them where you can read the sponsors. That's always my big thing with when I'm talking to Baker and Richie down at Race Ready Inc. And I'm like, hey, just make it where my logos stand out, and they're super good at that. They know what they're doing. So
Where did the 23 derive from?
what's that? Oh, where did the 23 come
number.
from? So it's gonna sound crazy. Like everyone thinks it's the opposite of my dad's number. He was 32. My favorite number is 6, but I'm not a single digit fan number on race cars. So 2 times 3 is 6. As silly as that sounds.
Huh.
It is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We landed on the moon. If you don't know that, I'm sorry. I don't know why that reference came to my head.
I think you just taught Jeremy some math.
Holy shit.
Yeah. That's where the 23 comes from. It's as simple as that. Just single numbers for me. I just don't like on a sprint car. So I always I wanted to do a double digit number, and it was going to be 51. That was my big one. So I think 5s look good on a race car. But with the Ramers background here, I just figured try not to follow that as directly. And
Austin Truchet. Don't copy, okay?
Yeah.
I think he's 51, right? Yeah. So probably my last question. I don't know. I always end up
never his last question.
It never is.
When he says it's his last question, it's not the last question.
It's probably not. But now, as I said that, I completely forgot what I was going to say. So thank you so much. Oh, driving style. Do you put yourself in sort of a kind of a category of driving style? I mean, if you had your preference and the bottom and the top were equal, where do you want to run? I know you already said about ripping the lip and it's fun, but
yeah, I want to run the top.
You want to run the top.
Yeah, top's where I'd rather be.
Rip the top. That's it. So saw you at the track a lot this past year. You seem to always have a pretty good crew helping you out. Who helps you out on the team each week, whether it's at the shop or at the track?
Yeah, so my shop helps me, Dad, Tom, and then I got Ryan and Jeff, who they're taking some time off racing this year. They got a lot of family stuff going on, and they're always camping and doing some stuff. So they're gonna, Ryan's getting older. He'll be driving this year too. So, they're gonna spend some time with family and enjoy that. And I appreciate all their help that I've gotten from them over the years. And Tom's my crew chief. And he's great help at the shop and, at the shop 2 times a week. And then it's me and Dad other than that. And so it's me and Dad. And then when I get to the track, it'll be me, Dad, Tom, Jeff, Ryan, who won't be there this year, like I said, and Chris. That's kind of been our duo there for a while, and it works. We know what their job is. They know what to do and kind of help make things smooth. How hectic it can get at the track. So
yeah. So you said Ryan.
Once I start tearing something up.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm sure that makes it easy on everybody.
Yeah.
You said Ryan's getting older, but he's going to drive. So you mean like he's a kid getting older, driving age, or some old guy?
Yeah, he'll be getting into the driving age.
Ryan, who is it? Ryan,
he'll be in driving. It's Jeff and Ryan who's been just helping us out all the time. Okay,
cool. Sponsors. Thanks, some sponsors. We'll get you out of here. You spent almost an hour with us. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
thanks
definitely.
Sponsors from last year, new ones this year.
Yeah, so we got a bunch coming from last year. Morgan's Pavement's going to be back, who's been with me since my sportsman days. I actually bought my first sportsman from him and Chad Smith. That's how that sponsorship started. I got Sassy Salon, who's been with me since sportsman, even with my dad. Sherry Anderson's Remax team is going to be back with us, which has been an awesome sponsor. My best friend's mom and her dad, or his mom and dad, are both realtors here for Remax, and they're great people. Steve Junkin's Tattoo is going to be back. Kennard's Lounge, he's always a fun time. Aquafun Pools, RV Rentals, Sullivan Funeral Homes, Blood Race and Lubricants. And I did get a couple new ones in the off season, which, everything helps. So that's great. Charles Flower Garden. So Valentine's Day is coming up. Make sure you get your flowers. And
flower theme race car.
HVAC. So I picked up a couple new ones, which is great.
That's awesome.
You know, everything helps in this racing world, so it's never too small.
No doubt, man. Hey, thank you so much.
I want to. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jim. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to read one comment real quick from Kyle Keene. Justin was one of the nicest dudes at the track. Just straight up a good guy. Fun racing with him. Do you want to rethink your nominee for who you love
Yeah,
racing
hey,
against?
maybe Kyle. Maybe Kyle's my guy I like to race around. No, Kyle's a good dude as well. I really do enjoy racing around him. He's, you know, one of them clean, aggressive guys that you can race around, be aggressive, and you're not going to get mollywopped or flipped into the fence in the next corner.
And you might. You know, it's a new year.
Yeah. Maybe 2023 is that year. We'll find out.
It's a new year. We've told everybody this, man. Hey, Victory Lane, you win a race, come back here on a Monday. Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Let's shout out how the night went and evaluate it and get you back on here. All right.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I got some Mondays with you this year.
Sure.
Yeah,
And when
I
you get
like
merch, let us know. We'll
Yes.
I'll buy some merch.
We'll
Hell
do.
yeah.
We'll promote that.
We're working
merch.
on
Chris-
a T-shirt now. So
Great.
That's what I like to hear.
Hell yeah, dude. Good luck in 2023. Look forward to seeing you at the racetrack, and we'll get you back on here.
hey, thanks guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Justin.
Take care, buddy.
Justin.
That was a fun interview there with Justin and Foster right there. Just
Learned a
pretty
ton.
good dude. Learned a lot there, and
Yeah.
this is every single time we talk to these guys. I know I say it every time, but it truly is. Learn a little something every
Yeah.
single time. It's awesome.
It's true, and I met Justin earlier in the season and got to talk to him a little bit, and you know, just getting to know these guys, and you know, he turned and later in the season. We didn't get to talk about this story, which is fine, but he actually jumped in Nat Tucky's car at a practice session at Babs to help Nat kind of shake down his deal, kind of figure out what's been going on with his deal. So, you know, I worked with Nat Tucky at Bob Ruth Ford and got to know Justin. So it was kind of a good match. Justin has some experience and really helped Nat figure some things out that he was struggling with. So just a good dude, good family from you know, everything I know, and kind of got to know that tonight. So that was fun for sure.
It's cool. So we're gonna take a quick couple-minute break, right? And we'll be back. We're gonna just talk a little bit. Some stuff that we haven't really been able to talk about because we've been talking to all these drivers. So we'll be talking a little bit about some stuff coming up. And then around 9:30 or so, Chase Deves should be joining us. So please stick around. We'll be right back in a few moments.